21 years old and I have no friends. 30 years old and I have no friends. 57 years old and I have no friends. 107 years old and all my friends are dead. However, according to experts, if you live to 107 years old, chances are you would have had lifelong friends, and that increases your longevity, unlike the other friendless, lonely, sad people like me. My name is Teresa, and this is the loneliness epidemic. So this is a bit of a departure from my usual topics, which is fashion, aesthetics, fashion history, and other things. So this is categorized as the other thing, but it is a trend, a disturbing, alarming trend, the loneliness epidemic that's gripped America. Very recently, the US Surgeon General says loneliness, the risk of premature death from being socially disconnected, is equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day and represents an even higher mortality impact than a lack of physical activity and obesity. Americans are lonelier than ever and more isolated than ever. In the 1970s, about half of Americans, 45%, say they generally trust other people, but now a third of Americans say that they trust other people. The amount of time that Americans say they spend alone every day has risen by nearly 30 minutes from 2003 to 2019 and increased that by about 20 minutes in 2020. The amount of time that young people ages 15 through 24 spend with their friends has dropped nearly 70% from 2003 to 2020, and half the country say that they have 3 or fewer close friends. Just 16% of Americans say that they feel very attached to their local community. So we are in the grips of a loneliness epidemic. Americans are more lonely and more isolated than ever before. We have fewer close friends. We trust people less than before. We are not as involved in our local community as before. We're gonna get to the heart of the matter, why we are lonely. I think that loneliness is subjective depending on who you're talking to, depending on if you're an introvert or an extrovert. I am an introvert. I've always been an introvert through nature and nurture. My parents are also extremely introverted. With that brew, we are lonely people. But because I am introverted, I don't ever feel incredibly alone when I am not around people. I feel satisfied in many ways, but every so often, I will scroll through Instagram and see people at Friendsgivings, barbecues, weddings, and I would feel a twinge of FOMO and a twinge of emptiness, but that is not an overreaching twinge. And while I've had friends, I've never had a best friend, a 4 a.m. friend, somebody you could call at 4 a.m. if there is an emergency. I've never ever had that. I've had friendly acquaintances that kind of drift in and out of my life. We grow apart and we just become friendly acquaintances on social media. And our relationship is now summed up by liking each other's photos, which we don't really do that much anymore because of algorithm changes and whatnot. So most of the time I'm alone, and when I do go to parties or whatever, I'm always very surprised that I'm ever invited to anybody's wedding. That happens once in a blue moon. And my weekend social calendar is never full. It's actually pretty empty. I don't mind that. I don't mind being alone because when I'm alone, I'm not lonely. But sometimes when I'm in a big crowd of people, maybe like a brunch with 15 friendly acquaintances, work friends, what have you, I feel very alone. Without some alone time to myself, I will feel very, very drained. I can only be vivacious and lively for 3 hours. That's even pushing it. So, okay, 1 hour, and then that's it. The shine is off the rose. I feel like you're gonna get annoyed by me, and I probably get annoyed by you. Distance makes the heart grow fonder. So I'm just gonna toss out a couple of reasons why I think we're lonely in America right now. I would venture to say that a lot of people make friends through proximity. School friends, work friends, you bond through shared experiences and shared hardship. That algebra test really ruins me. Then your friend will say, word. It's instant friendship. You bond, you're best friends for life. You go to each other's birthday parties. Maybe you come from a small town and after high school graduation, you want to strike it out to the big city. You want to move to New York City because like the Bruce Bruce Springsteen song, Thunder Road, it's a town full of losers and you're pulling out of here to win. That's probably why you have no friends, because you think your town is full of losers. And then you have work. You bond over that exceptionally difficult customer who threw that fish fillet in your face because you didn't put enough tartar sauce in her order. And man, that lady, what a Karen. Word. Then you become best friends at work because of the shared experiences and hardships. But then when you leave McDonald's for something better like Red Lobster, life takes you on two divergent roads. Some people stick with you through thick and thin, through effort on both your parts, by the way. Some people fade into distant landmarks and they become part of your past. But you can always be grateful that you were once friends with them, even though they're now distant acquaintances. You just have to remember the good times. Speaking of McDonald's and speaking of moving on to something better, let's talk about capitalism and how it's killing our friendships in the modern day. Once you've graduated college, once you've slipped into the working force and you're working that full-time 40-hour-a-week job Monday through Friday, then that 40-hour-a-week job expands to like maybe a 45-hour-a-week job, 50-hour-a-week job, and then you only have your weekends, Saturday and Sunday, to decompress from the stress. That leaves very little room for friends. On top of decompressing, on top of just relaxing on Saturday, and maybe on Sunday, if you're like the anxious type, maybe you spend the evening trying to get yourself into the mindset of going back on Monday morning. That leaves little room to put in the effort to see your friends, college friends, friends that don't live nearby, friends who they themselves are also probably very busy with their jobs. And then you have family time. Let's say you have a toddler screaming at you every chance you get. You gotta have like father-son, mother-daughter bonding time with your kid or your kids. And then you have to have some spouse time if you're married. But let's say you're single. You're single and all your friends have gotten married. And now they all want to do like couples nights, double dates, and you're kind of like the third wheel. So maybe you don't want to hang out with your best friend who's now married and attached to her husband at the hip and only does things with other couples. Or let's say that you are married, but you don't have children and everybody around you is having children. Every time you scroll on Instagram, somebody is posting an ultrasound picture, a gender reveal, or the birth of their first son or daughter, or first birthday party, or their fifth kid's bar mitzvah or something. You feel a little left out because maybe you don't want to have children, you're child free, or maybe you can't have children, or maybe you're going through infertility and this is like your third round of IVF and it's bankrupting you and you have no children, your womb is barren, and then like here somebody is on their fifth child and it doesn't make you feel very good. If the shoe's on the opposite foot, maybe you got married when you were 18 and you popped out 3 kids. Now you dealing with one kid in one arm, the other kid crawling up your back, and all your friends have chosen not to have kids and they're like high-powered district attorneys, neurosurgeons or something, and you just feel left out. Wow, my life is just dedicated to my kids. Who am I? Who am I? Married without children, married with children, then married with several children, and other things. Technology has made it easier for all of us to stay connected. I mean, it's easy to drop a text. It's easy to call somebody up. It's easier to plan meetups and everything. It's easy to just have a conversation on DMs. But at the same time, that ease and convenience and just the fact that you're able to access the highlights of somebody's life, whereas 50 years in the past, you're not able to. You actually have to call them up, meet up for coffee, and then talk about what you've been doing for the past 3 to 5 years. Now that you can see the Memorial Day barbecue, their Thanksgiving setup, their Christmas tree, you're able to see all that and you feel like you don't need to call them up and connect. Seeing the highlights of their life makes you feel like you already know what's going on in their lives, and that kind of negates the need to meet up in person because our time is limited in a capitalist world where we're all working. Maybe you do intend to actually meet up, but life gets in the way and you just just put that on the back burner. And then 5 years pass and you haven't seen your friend from high school in that long. I've noticed that in friend groups, there's always one person who gets everybody together. They're the glue that binds all the friends together. They're the ones that makes the reservation for brunch and schedules the meetup. There's always that person that does the majority of the work, and the rest of the people are kind of along for the ride. Just tell me where to go and I'll go. I unfortunately have never been the person to take over. I've never been the person that binds the friend group together. I'm always the one that's kind of along for the ride. And I realized that in order to see some of my friends, I need to be that person. But I'm so introverted that I'm kind of scared to do it. Another reason you may be lacking in the friend department, this is something that a lot of people won't talk about because they don't want to hurt your feelings. You may be annoying. You may be like a friend that somebody wants to avoid, and you have no clue, you have no idea, because introspection is not your forte. Usually people who are annoying, and usually people who are like narcissists, they don't know how annoying they are, and they don't know that they're narcissists. It's probably even impossible for them to know about that. There's a lot of toxic people out there. You just want to declutter them from your life. If you find that you have no friends whatsoever, maybe you're one of those toxic people and you just don't know about it. There's been a lot of relationships and people that I've observed just from working customer service. Some people act toxic in public, and I'm like, why do you even have friends? Why do you even have a girlfriend or a boyfriend? Like, how can they stand being around you? They're very unaware of how annoying they are to their friends, to people around them, to family members, whatever, anybody around them. Maybe that's a reason why some people are alone, is because introspection is not their forte, and they are either toxic people or annoying, and nobody will step up and be a social assassin and tell them what they're doing is obnoxious or they're a full-blown narcissist. So they're just blaming why isn't this person my friend? Why did they give me the cold shoulder? I try to reach out to them and they just like completely cut me out of their life. They can't conceive that the reason is because they're annoying. And annoying means different things. So let me just make up a couple of things that could potentially be annoying. And if you display these behaviors, maybe that's why you don't have any friends. You constantly talk about yourself. Whenever you're in a conversation with somebody, it's always about you. You're a taker, not a giver. You have to tell everybody you know your life story. And sometimes this life story is the same story over and over again. Like, you only have 1 to 2 stories in your arsenal. Let's say you have like 5 people in your acquaintance. Every time you see them, you tell them the same story, and they've heard the story 50, 100 times. You never notice their eyes are starting to stray, like, yes, and you never ask your friend how they're doing. I mean, you may ask after the first hour of talking about like what you had for lunch that day, what you watched on TV, your beef with Debbie from accounting or something. You never notice that the friend that you're talking to is like, she has wronged you. Debbie from accounting, she's bad news. Yeah, I get you. After the first hour of your run-on story, then you finally stop and you go, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't ask about you. Or maybe you've never asked about how they're doing or how their day is. And they're like, well, I just got in a car accident this morning and that's why my arm is a little crooked. And you're like, Well, speaking of crooked, you know who's crooked? Debbie from accounting. You might be a very negative person and you're not aware that you're doing this. You speak ill of everybody at work. You like to gossip. You speak ill of family members. You speak ill of somebody off the street. Ooh, look at that guy at Taco Bell. What ugly pants he has, those ugly Dockers. Maybe everybody that comes on your radar, you have nothing good to say about them. And your friend catches on. They're gonna wonder when they're not around if you speak of them that way. You speak negatively of them that way, and then they're gonna try to like distance themselves from you. Are you a taker and not a giver? Do you borrow more cups of sugar than you give? Do you borrow somebody's CD and not return it? Or maybe you return it scratched? Do you ask for loans? That's a big one. Do you ask for loans and then you never pay your friend back? You have BO, and nobody will tell you that you have BO. Do you enter an Asian person's home with your shoes on and refuse to take your shoes off. Sometimes I wear my shoes at home. I mean, I don't like just lounge around wearing shoes, but sometimes when I forget something, I'll just come in, pick it up, but I don't take my shoes off at the entryway. And that's why my carpets are dirty. Do you have dirty carpet and your friends don't want to come over because your carpets are dirty? Do you flood your social media accounts with unsolicited political memes? Do you do this on Instagram where people just want to look at aesthetically pleasing photos, but you don't put aesthetically pleasing photos because you put memes? You're trying to turn this into like the angry Facebook comments. Maybe that's why you have no friends, because they've lost respect for you. Most criminally of all, do you always have to get the last word, and do you always have to be right? Are you the person no one can be in an argument with because you always try to sneak in that last word in there, try to make that other person feel inferior to you and feel bad? So at the end of the day, friendships are a very tenuous thing. It's not based on logic or reason. It's just based on how somebody makes you feel. It's the same with like romantic relationships. Like, does this person make you feel happy? Does that person make you feel like you can let your hair down and just confide in him or her your hopes and dreams? People like to be listened to. People like for you to listen to them. So don't go on a narcissistic rant about your life. Ask people questions. Ask people about themselves. Once you've made your friends, you're halfway there, because the giant obstacle in everybody's life is keeping your friends. That takes two to tango. That takes effort. Don't rely on somebody to put the band back together. You have to be the one to kind of step up and do it if this is what you really want. You can't just sit around alone and go like, why don't any of my friends ever ask me to go out or anything? Because they're busy. You're busy. They're busy. Other things get in the way. So if you want to see your friends, then you have to call them up or text them or whatnot, make it happen. And if it doesn't happen, at least you tried. At least you made an effort. That's not failure in my book. Number 3, don't be annoying. Realize how annoying you can be and stop that. Realize that sometimes we all have personal deficiencies, if you will, and stop that. Just be kind to people, be excellent to each other, and ask people what they're up to. That's all anybody wants, is to tell you what they're up to without listening to your 3 stories over and over again. It's that simple. So that's how you can keep a friend. I hope this video brought you some value and entertainment and maybe some good advice. And if you're an annoying person and you feel like you've been called out, don't get angry at me, get angry at yourself. The truth hurts, you know? Just take a long look in the mirror and figure out all the ways that you have been annoying to other people in your past and fix it. Fix yourself, for God's sake. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, a thumbs up, and please subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. Good night and good luck.